This is the Spurs POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the San Antonio Spurs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, sometimes you just need to remind your pain-in-the-neck rival who exactly you are. And the Spurs continue to remind the Houston Rockets, regardless of what happens, they're still the big brother. And that's the case again tonight. Welcome into the Spurs POSTCAST right here on Locked On Spurs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You, of course, know the number one sports podcast network by now. It's us here at the Locked On Podcast Network. He is NBA champion Devin Brown. I'm merely Casey Viera, coming off of a convincing victory today for your San Antonio Spurs, a 145-120 beatdown of their rival Houston Rockets on an evening that saw just about everything from everyone, just about everything from beyond the three-point arc fall in. And as a result, another victory. The Spurs are 30 games over 500. They've won 15 of their last 16. They do it on a national TV spotlight on the newly branded Sunday Night Basketball out there. I'm not sure how many more ways I can acknowledge that it was collectively, my friend, a very, very good night for the San Antonio Spurs.
Absolutely. Spurs taking care of business. And you just mark that when you move on to the next one. But let's break this game down a little bit, Casey, because there was a lot of fun out there for the fellas tonight.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Now, Houston playing a little bit better, came in tonight battling for that 3 seed. We're in possession of the 3 seed between Denver with a little bit of a regression. Houston playing pretty well. That would be theoretically a second-round playoff matchup. This would be tonight.
Right.
It was close in the first quarter, and Dylan Harper was not part of the reason why it was close. Or I guess you could say theoretically was, because he hit 2 threes consecutively that kind of really set the tone. Victor had 8. Harper had 8 in that first quarter as a whole. But despite a strong start, the Rockets end up taking a 1-point lead in the second quarter of play. And then what happened from the second quarter on was pretty much kind of a microcosm how the rest of the evening went. They start the second by hitting their first 7 shots. And what was suddenly that deficit, a back and forth game, immediately starts taking another direction. And the Spurs, on a night that they hit 21 of their 43 pointers, this was just kind of a precursor to how everything went. Ultimately, they go up by 12 at the break. They hit 41% of their threes in that first half. Harper has 17 at halftime. Dylan does. Victor with 15-5 and a couple of blocks. Third quarter, it really feels like those woes coming out of the break are becoming more and more a thing of the past, because an easy 9-0 spurt balloons that all the way up to 20+. They go up 27 in the third. Back end of the third quarter, however, it was not ideal because the crowd was all pumped up. You had Vic dunking around 3 defenders, 3 balls were falling, all that good stuff. But then they kind of got a little sloppy. Lead goes down to 16, 110, 94 after 3. Yes, they had 110 points after 3 quarters of play. Houston got it within 12. But credit to the Spurs. Within that first little minute that Houston got it back within 12, Keldon hit some big threes. Victor, a big bucket. Fox had 7 points between that 11:06 mark when Houston got as close as they did to when he was ultimately pulled with 4 minutes left, even less time than that. He had 7 points there. And as a result, Rockets pull the plug, down 20 with 4 minutes left. And it was actually entertaining because Spurs emptied the bench, and then everyone was firing away and just drilling threes. Lindy Waters, Olynyk, Carter Bryant too. And, that the fun part of it. But, well, I guess all of it was fun, but you know what I'm getting at. Victor goes for 29, 8, and 4 blocks in 30 minutes. Steph Castle with 23 and 5 assists. Fox solid, 20 and 10. Dylan Harper, 19 and 6 assists off the bench. Mentioned that 21 of 40 from the field, 58% from the field. 21 of 40 from 3, 58% from the field. It's just more of the same, right? It's just more of the same, continuing to just show the growth and just why there's more reason to believe that this team's got a shot. They have a real shot.
Yeah, so where it's all starting is defensively. Obviously, when you have Victor back there, but the things that I'm starting to see, which is a lot of growth in San Antonio, is the fact that the guards, everybody else, they know that they have Victor back there that can block shots, chain shots, things like that. but guys are actually now starting to actually guard their man. All right. They're taking pride in guarding their man. So, yes, if you happen to get beat, yes, Victor's there back there to protect you. But when you see some of these guys diving, out of bounds into the first row, given the effort, that they're getting defensively, all right, that's what's going to lead to the other end. Now, what we've struggled with, here up until I say about the All-Star break, was the outside shooting. Well, now you're seeing what it is when you bring, what you bring defensively. Now, put on top of that, what happens with your three-point shooting. Casey, you had Harper, three threes or four?
Harper had 3. Well, let me double check on that one more time.
Keldon had 4.
Yeah, Harper had 3, 3 or 4.
Yeah, when you're getting this, type of production from the outside on offense, all right, I haven't gotten into what Wemby did. I haven't gotten into what Fox did. Yes, you're looking at a very special basketball team. So when I look at a game like this, and that's why I said what I said, hey, you check it off. It was Houston. That's 3. We got 3 more of this homestand. Love to get all 6 of them, but just a very business type approach that went on tonight, Casey.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned 3 as well, 3 for 3 on the homestand, but also 3 out of 4 against the Houston Rockets. I don't think the Rockets are going to make up 7 games the rest of the way, because that's currently 7.5 what they trail the Spurs for the 3 spot, or the 2 spot rather, in the West. But you take all the tiebreakers that you can get. It's interesting because this game felt quite the contrary from when they played last time, right? Because really the past 2 times, because their first meeting in Houston, they played awful, and in that fourth quarter, and they blew that double-digit lead. It was real bad. But then last go around in Houston, it was a real physical game, right? And the Spurs just couldn't find their rhythm. And it's ultimately until that defense really just locked down in that fourth quarter. They held Houston to 13 points. Victor actually outscored them, if I'm not mistaken. But point being, though, that was a very physical game that didn't exactly play the part at this. Houston actually wasn't terrible on the offensive end here in this neither. The Spurs weren't missing everything. But that's an aspect of it that I like as well, because it continues to show more ways that the Spurs are finding ways to win games and beat you, right? They're winning the rock fights. They're winning the shootouts. When they're hitting 50% of their threes, we know that's not going to happen every night. That's not a reasonable ask, of course. But that's just another encouraging sign that they're finding ways on so many fronts to get it done.
Yeah, well, if you go back to that game, if you remember that fourth quarter, Jabari Smith hit some big threes to keep Houston alive. Reed Shepherd, same thing. Well, this was different because now you have those role players on the road. All right. And Houston was looking, they got it to 12, and Jabari missed a very important one to cut it inside 10 when Victor was on the bench. Couldn't get it done. But when those guys are playing at home, it's totally different. Believe me, I've been there, done all that. But I think the focus is a lot different now defensively for the Spurs. You don't see a lot of the miscues. You see some at times, but it's not, 3 and 4 or 5 straight possessions of that. So you got to give Mitch a lot of credit for that. But the Spurs are just playing at a all-star, type level right now. And it's all of them. It's not just one. Obviously, we know what Victor does, but he's got so much help right now, Casey. It's ridiculous.
They moved to 24-6 now at home, 47-17. Obviously, 30 games above 500. Still 2.5 back of Oklahoma City for that top spot in the West.
Yeah.
Wanted to ask you something because the assist turnover ratio 38-8 tonight. Before we got started, you mentioned that since the All-Star break, you have seen a dramatic shift in things and as to why the ball has been moving and it's been so tidy. What is that shift? Why has it been so different?
It's just when you're constantly watching film and nobody's going to watch as much film as NBA players. So when Mitch is in there going over clips about one more pass, make the better pass, basketball this, basketball that. Well, now it's starting to click in because the ball is really moving. You don't really see it sticking. You don't see Castle with it too much, Fox with it too much, Harper with it too much. They are coming off of the basketball. It's swinging around. It reminds me of the 05 Spurs. You remember them, Casey?
I
Okay.
do.
It
I
reminds me
do.
of the '05 Spurs and all the Spurs teams that have been before this one, where when that ball gets moving and everybody plays well. Casey, since the All-Star break, they're really moving the basketball.
The bench on that '05 team, not half that bad, right?
Not half that bad.
Not half that bad. I wonder
You
why.
got a guy from Argentina. You had a couple guys from America. We were pretty good.
Who's that kid from UTSA? That was the real standout, right?
America. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, America. Hey, that's a pretty good pivot tonight because the bench for the San Antonio Spurs completely changing the game.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
No Argentinians, for those wondering at home off the bench, but some pretty good compromise that they'll take. Dylan Harper, we mentioned him. He had 19 points coming off the bench. Keldon, he had 20 himself. As a whole, the bench put up 61. Really the decisive factor on many of fronts because it helped them set the tone when Harper was hitting those threes in the first quarter. And then it helped when things got close that Keldon came back with a counter punch, some big threes. Carter Bryant, by the way, 7 points tonight and 3 rebounds in 13 minutes. And that's speaks to the depth, right? And continues to speak to the depth of this team.
Well, look where Harper's going with his game. He's starting to really step up. He's been playing well. Keldon got back to playing the way Keldon plays. Bully basketball, getting into the lane, hitting some threes. Keldon was all over the place. He got himself back in that, not that he was out of it, Casey, but he got himself back in that 6th man of the year. We had talked about, we were joking about Carter Bryant kind of stepping on his toes a little bit, but Keldon must have heard us because he got back to playing well tonight. And when you get 61 off the bench, and for our fans, when you're talking about the NBA, you really want to get about 25 a night from the bench. So when you go 61, that's just incredible right there. So it was coming from all angles, hitting, the Rockets just about from everywhere. And, if you're Houston, you go back and, you go, hey, they were just better than us tonight.
Mm-hmm. And they were. And that's kind of been the case with a lot of teams. The Spurs have been better than recently, and part of the reason they have been as impressive as they've been. One team that perhaps might have a say in that and saying, I don't know if you guys have been better than us, the Boston Celtics, because they've been fantastic. And as you might have heard at home, they're only getting better with Jason Tatum back in the picture. And it just, what do you know? So happens that the Celtics are going to be here Tuesday night in town. So on the other side of the break, our NBA champion pal and I will hit on that a little bit more and what we've maybe seen out of Tatum or haven't seen and how things shake out a little bit comparatively speaking to when they met earlier on in the season. Got that coming up for you in just a little bit more right here on the Spurs Postcast on Locked On Spurs following another San Antonio victory tonight, 145-120 over the Houston Rockets, taking care of business and continuing to just keep pace atop the Western Conference. Also a good time for us to step aside and have a conversation about some of our friends who help and put this program on the air, putting these programs on the air. As we know, with our friends over there at Quo, spring is a natural reset point. And if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communications. But that's why we're talking to you about Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. It's the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, 90, and it lets your entire team run on one business number so you never miss a call, never miss a text, never miss an opportunity. Make this season no opportunity and no customer where one of them never slips away. Try Quo free, get 20% off your first 6 months, quo.com/lockedonnba, quo.com/lockedonnba with Quo. No missed calls and no missed customers. Hey, you guys already know that we're big on the prize picks front around these parts. And if you took part in your prize picks today, I hope you took the over on just about everything in this game because you probably got a little bit of money out of it. But if you didn't, listen, shoot your shot on prize picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first 5 because they're giving you that 50 in your first 5. And it matters because they're the #1 daily fantasy sports pick app, and it's super simple to play. Pick a bunch of props. You have them there for you. Pick more, pick less, pair them all up, and you got a chance to win some bucks. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA. It gets you $50 in lineups after you play your first 5. Correction, use code LOCKEDONNFL, actually. LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first 5. With PrizePicks, as you know, it's good to be right. And finally, March Madness is knocking on the door. Big-time games, momentum swings. March Madness as a whole, it's fantastic. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy even into a bigger potential winning with the college basketball parlay boost profit boost. You get involved as the games get that much more important, put a little something on that, and you're going to win a lot, and win a lot pretty successfully as well. Head on over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com to get started over there. Play your game with FanDuel. Boston Celtics next on the itinerary, next on the agenda for the San Antonio Spurs. You guys know the bullet points by now. Been without Jason Tatum all season, have still played very well, firmly in contention for a top spot in the Eastern Conference. They won again today, now that Jason Tatum has been back 2 times over, and it just merely happens to coincide with the fact that they have a big trip to San Antonio coming up on Tuesday, just as much a big game for the Spurs, trying to do the same. Second time that the 2 teams have met this season. Devin and I were actually joking about this the other day because we couldn't remember. Maybe it's because the year has just been going by just like that, and sometimes the games. But the Spurs, all the way back at the start of the year, they did actually beat the Celtics in Boston. Victor did play a 195 win, good game, close competitive game down to the wire. And now we'll try to sweep the season series against the Celtics, potentially a finals rematch. Definitely more than enough reason to believe that the Celtics right now can be the title favorites, maybe even should be out of the Eastern Conference. What's the dynamic that you see out aside from the obvious of Tatum just being fantastic? What else does he change about this Celtics team, comparatively speaking, to when he's not? I guess, you know what, a better way to phrase that. Hold on. What is Jason Tatum going to be doing to this team? How is he going to be impacting this team currently constructed, given the way that Jaylen Brown has been playing?
Well, I did see the Mavs game, his first game back on Friday. Here's my thing, and I'm going, player to player. He did take his time coming back. Jason Tatum, I've watched a lot over the last 3 or 4 years. He's still favoring it, but that's rightfully so. His leg. But let me tell you something, how Boston's working, and I like the way they did that. So he brought him back against a Mavs team that's, not having a tough year. Then you get the Cavs. Well, now you have one of the best teams in the NBA. They're going to want to see how that leg reacts to playing heavy minutes. He's going to play. He's going to be out there. Now, he changes Boston because he can go get you 25, 30, 40, 50 at times. Now, it's not to take away anything from Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's going to get his shots. They want him to play in his rhythm. He's been playing at an all-star MVP type way all year. Jason Tatum's not going to take away from that. Everything that Jason Tatum's going to do is just going to coincide with what Jaylen Brown does. All right. Now, against the Spurs, since this is going to be his 3rd game back, you may get a few more ISOs for Jason Tatum. Okay. Look out for that. But the thing about it is that young man can really shoot the basketball. So the Spurs are going to have to be aware. You got Jaylen on one side and you got him on the other. So I think it's going to be a great dynamic. But me, looking player to player, I want to see how he does against especially this Spurs team and the level they're playing right now, Casey.
Interestingly enough, between the 2 games, the numbers are almost kind of identical here. Same amount of minutes played in both, 27. Shot 6 of 16 in both of them. Today, he finished with 20. The first game that he played, like you said, against Dallas, 15 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. So that's kind of interesting on that front that he finished with an almost identical box score of the 2. Realistic chance that this is a finals matchup. How do you think that works for San Antonio?
That's a lot. So OKC, New York, Detroit, Denver. If this is a finals matchup, it'll be good. It'll be, 6-7 games. But you're talking, two young, very hungry coaches that really get after it. You're talking about, Boston. You might not know a whole lot of guys coming off their bench like you do San Antonio, but they play the game of basketball the way you should. They move it around. They play defense. I don't know. We're gonna have to get Luke Cornett on here and get his pick.
I know you want to talk about a guy who's going through a real impasse over there because he is a god up there still. They love him up there in Boston.
Love him.
It's interesting because I've been on the train that, as you know, I think there's 3 teams, and why I'm really excited for this Celtics game is because I think there's like 3 teams I really, and maybe even 2 now, because I don't know the state of Jamal Murray. But there was 3 teams I don't like the Spurs against in a playoff series. The Denver Nuggets, which is that team now, I'm not sure about given Jamal Murray's ankle. The Minnesota Timberwolves, New York Knicks. That's it. I'm interested because the Boston Celtics might be one of those teams to perhaps be a 4th,
Yes.
if things don't go well on Tuesday. I don't think that's particularly going out on a limb because I think most teams, they see the Boston Celtics in the postseason. They're saying, all right, it's going to be a long 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have to dig deep for this one. So I might not be going out. I'm not going out on a limb saying that, but from the aspect of seeing a schematical adjustment standpoint, now that they're getting the Celtics at their peak, do we even call it their peak? Because they're still ascending. They're playing great. They get prime Boston Celtics healthy, or at least very close to, with Tatum back. We keep talking about bars that we need the Spurs to hit, consistently moving the goalpost. Obviously not because they're doing bad, but we just need, as fans, we need more reason to validate why we're feeling the way that we do. A win over the Boston Celtics, this iteration, currently about as close to as healthy and peak as they get, that would say a lot.
It would say a lot.
I would say a lot.
And we and I know you've seen Boston. I've seen Boston, and we're talking about Jaylen Brown and Tatum, but tell him that third guy that can hurt the Spurs if Dylan Harper is not careful out there.
I was going to say our old pal Derek White, but yeah.
Well, of course Derek White as well. Yeah. But Pritchard is.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mavs probably don't want to see him again. I mean.
Credit to what Brad Stevens has done out there, man. So much changeover from last year, moving Holiday, moving on from Porzingis, having to deal, pivot with the Tatum stuff. The fact that they've been as tremendous as they've been really speaks to, kind of the Celtics culture out there. Championship culture for sure. Dylan Harper, actually, ironically enough, has a vested interest in that, as you know, with his brother on the Celtics. So that will be of note as well. Also of note because he's getting some love tonight.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Just more of the same. More of the same. Dylan Harper continues to build off that tremendous February that he had. 19 and 6 tonight off the bench, set the tempo of the offense, hit 3 of his 4 threes, which has not been particularly common, but just shows that he continues to grow, get better, expand the game, and as a result, gets the deserved love, right?
Yeah, we talked about it before. NBA pedigree, his dad, obviously, longtime NBA player. He's just at a different level right now. And then the threes tonight, if he continues to do that, he's gonna, he's well above what the Spurs thought he was gonna do already. Number 2 pick, and he's showing it right now, Casey. And tonight was just another night for him. But fantastic game. Congratulations to him. He wins our star of the game. And I picked him because we show Wemby and Fox a lot of love, but Dylan came in, and as soon as he came in, made a big impact on the game.
Yeah. We do show him a lot of love, but I tell you what, Keldon Johnson's on the thumbnail today, so that's got to be something, right? You know how your team's doing real good is that you can put more than one guy on the thumbnail for a valid reason. You know, last go around we had Carter Bryant, and we almost had record viewership the other day.
Yep.
And Keldon Johnson played great tonight.
Yep.
Wasn't the player of the game. Dylan Harper was, but point being, give him more than one reason to be on the thumbnail. And of course, above all else, right? And that's all that matters. That's what they care about. I know. Anyways, right. Next time you're going to be hanging out with Devin and I, that's going to be after the game Tuesday, that aforementioned Celtics matchup. Once that thing goes final, right here on the Spurs postcast on Locked On Spurs. As always, you guys are awesome. Appreciate what you do and making this fun. And we love you guys for it. Another fun night right here on Locked On Spurs. So for that said, for NBA champion Devin Brown, I'm Casey Viera. We will talk to you guys on Tuesday. Enjoy the start of your work week.